would say another thing that was very important, I did some research, I did an article, Acta Biomedica, for doctors who asked me to clarify with international health regulation. And I did something very simple in research. You compare SARS-CoV-1 and SARS-CoV-2.
Right.
SARS-CoV-1 took 8 months to touch 24 countries. So it's not like it went from Korea to Frankfurt in one day.
Right.
And what it did is that I realized that the coronavirus is mutating so quickly, they never could develop or experiment a vaccine. It was failing each time, 30 years. So I said, no, that's not possible.
Right. To make a vaccine that's going to work for the entire world.
No, and that mutates if it is a virus, and I have no evidence, because normally you have to put the Koch postulate and you have to see if it is chemical, if it's radionuclear, or if it's something else. Why focus on that, or with all,
right.
you know? Yeah, so this I saw, but...
So you haven't seen, just to be clear, because this is a whole other conversation, comes a lot, you haven't seen evidence that this is necessarily even a virus. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Well, I have seen evidence that the postulate of Koch has not been applied systematically. And that this is mutating so quickly that at each border you have to re-establish if it is a virus, a bacteria, a parasite, a chemical agent, you know, like a toxicity, any toxicity actually, or it is radionuclear, or it is one of those bioweapons that we have listed. And this was in the International Health Relation course. First you do a detective work, and the communication, we did some tabletop simulation of a press conference, and the ethical communication was to say, we don't know, but we are searching. And we have this evidence, but we're not sure that this is going to be the same in your country, so check it again. You see, and listen to what people say, go to the ground, re-establish the postulate of Koch. What has not been done in the Koch postulate, you have to isolate and purify the virus, and you have to take pictures. But as it mutates all the time, it should be always different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the third and fourth is that you have to establish what we do in science. Evidence is you have to prove that the causality, this creates B.
In some ways, you're supposed to take that isolated element and see, does it infect cells, right?
Take mice, put it back, and look if it is changed, the same change. You take another one, you do the same.
Right.
You take this virus, if it is there, and do it. And the fourth is the transmission. Does this mice transmit to that? How long? In which condition? In temperature? In the desert? In the Antarctica?
Right.
It's not possible to do a standardization.
Every nation should be doing this on their own for their own environmental differences, and so none of this happened.
No, on the opposite, it's standardized, and we got locked down after a month, and then I said no, it's impossible.
Right.
It's impossible because the first one was 20. It was 8 months to reach 24 countries.
Yeah.
So how come SARS-CoV-2 is suddenly locking down in 1 month?
Right.
So, you know, there were so many incoherence.
And I remember one of the issues when we first spoke that you were saying is, why did none of the scientists and specialists that were all involved in studying SARS-CoV-1 not get called and invited into a room to weigh in on SARS-CoV-2? It was like they were banned from listening, not going to listen to them, and we were running on computer models, imperial models that have now, and by the way, some of this you and I were discussing, we now know how wrong those things were because time has passed. Right, so nothing was going as, and you made it very clear then, people can go back and watch that episode on all that was wrong, that really just shocked you in the work that you'd done. Now we are, you know, in a year and a half, nearly, you know, beyond that, moving towards 2 years since that moment. What is your message now? If you've been watching this, where are you at now? What is your focus now? And what do we need to be thinking about?
Yeah, well, of course, you know, when you have a scene like that, you study, you look, you read papers, we all do this. And sometimes it becomes totally incoherent. So I try to make some sense of coherence in what are they doing through WHO and through the UN by the papers they're producing. And what I saw is that they are changing slowly the agenda of WHO.